public, yes, if you have membership that if your children are going to our school, you can come to our trivia night and we will sell Bloody Marys. But if you're an organization, it is open, like I don't see that as open to the public, where I'm just gonna be walking down the street and I walk in and there's open hours. So my interpretation of open public is just something different, and I don't know the leeway that I have to construct that interpretation. I think it's open to interpretation, but I want to be clear. I know we have someone in the audience, but Bill Jan.
I want to thank you for coming tonight so we could have some additional dialogue on this. One question that I just have after listening to the discussion is, what amount do you take in on liquor for these events? In comparison to the other beer and wine that you sell?
Yeah, so I don't know. I always wish you took in more money on everything we do.
Right, I know, same here.
But again, I mean, I don't have an answer for you on that today. Every event is different. Every event is a source of revenue for us. You know, so I couldn't answer that, but I just wanted to address a couple of questions. Does that answer your question enough?
Well, I'm interested in that.
Not at all.
Not at all. I'm interested in that answer, and then my second follow-up question to that would be, how would you be providing, I mean, this is something that I guess will be decided if there was a public hearing that was requested or granted tonight, which was how would you be, I know that I actually really appreciate the list that you provided. But then I'm interested to learn more about how your documentation is provided.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess if we get to that standpoint, I'm here, I'm not an attorney, I'm a parent. My wife and I are very involved over there, and I'm here because this was on the agenda, and there wasn't much notice either. It just came up that there was some confusion on it, so I came to provide some clarity and give you as much information as I had available, in the short time to gather these resources. So this isn't, like I said, an exhaustive list of it. This is just what we have. And then, as far as to your question of open hours, again, not an attorney, but if I want to go to a bar and it opens at 4, I can't go there at 10 and tell them I want to drink or else. We have posted hours of when mass is, it's out there. These events, I agree that, like I said, the father-daughter dance, it'd be weird if somebody that didn't go to the school came. The trivia night, the pancake breakfast, you go down this list, these are all events we actually put mailings out for to try to get the public to attend. Not only are these revenue sources, we got to constantly be recruiting. And this is how we get people in the door and involve the general public in our things. And again, when you're serving liquor, people just, these days are more likely to come. It's just the reality. I'm more likely to go. So, that's kind of the way it's set up as is, and so we are open to the public. I mean, that's our exact function.
And when you say serving alcohol, it's like a cover charge, right?
Depends. There's different ones. There's one where it's, it's a cover charge to get in, but typically all the beer, wine, liquor is a separate charge.
I appreciate your honesty and for participating tonight. And I've been listening to most of the discussion, and I do believe that it is this, I've not heard from this board in the discussion tonight that they are making a determination on the license, but the motions that have been in here before them represent either granting or calling for a hearing. So I just want to be clear in that before we move forward. So
thank you.
Attorney Griffin, and then Attorney, sorry.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
There's no doubt that if there's an event that is open up to anyone on the face of the planet, that's sure. So we may not have to dig down into there's some events that are adult parishioners, but just, here would be my suggestion. Start in January and say, is there an event that is open to anyone on the face of the planet? Go out 120 days, see if there's another one that's undoubtedly open to the entire planet. Go another 120 days, and you may feel counted that way. If there are some that fall into a more gray area, it's essentially.
Thank you. Attorney.
City Council, just to clarify something, thank you again. I don't mean to belabor it, we are taking quite a while. I apologize that the suggestion that the ordinance may have some flaws in comparison to state statute was taken as some kind of lawyer. The reason they do that as a lawyer. Well, yeah, and it shouldn't have been, and I apologize, and I'll give you a perspective on that too, but the reason you do that, when you see developing a record in a case, is because sometimes if you go up to the judge and say, Judge, you know, they did this, but I want to argue this thing about the validity of the statute. They say, well, you didn't say anything at the hearing. So, forgive me, I'm just trying to create a record so that I'm putting the issue out there.
I
And
totally
so
respect
so
that.
is
not
that
afraid of-
clarifying that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
and
so
so
that's,
was I in raising my
that's that.
question about that.
that's that. But let's assume that the ordinance is valid. The main point I wanted to make was the presumption is we use it, and I think we provided the factual basis for that. So that's the legal stuff. I happened to run the St. Robert Fair this year, which means I oversaw a bunch of other people who helped a ton. And we do sell liquor there. And we spent $1,000 on margarita mix, and we probably made $3,000. So to give you some sense of the revenues for that particular booth, one booth at the fair, those are some numbers that shows it's pretty meaningful for us, that part of our sales. And so that was my clarifiers, and I apologize. The last thing would be, there is a sense, a little bit of a sense when you've had the license for a long time, and all of a sudden you're being called to explain yourselves that, you know, well, you know, we're the same as every year. What's the, you know, why are now we sort of being looked upon as not complying and not being good stewards and good citizens? So there's a little bit of frustration there, and you pardon my sense, my getting involved because of that, because it is a property right, as the attorney has said. And so we are a little bit protective of that, which is why I think we came out to kind of observe and contribute to the record for it. Finally, I agree absolutely with Attorney Baer, because you've set up this definition of this term of use in your ordinance. And I think you've got to decide if it's isolated from the fact that there's other political issues with the lack of quota or there's not a lot of licenses. I think you have to look at that and decide it based on that ground. And I don't know that being open to the public all the time is a necessary part of use. And I think Attorney Baer has actually provided the proper approach. And I say that again out of an abundance of caution because I don't want to equate the two. Using it doesn't necessarily mean we're open to the public all the time. But the facts are, we pretty much are, or we often are. So again, I'm making a record here to have, just explain myself. But just don't conflate those two. I think are we using it, the facts are we are those criteria, those guidelines, are they going to help you determine whether we're using it? And I think you shouldn't say absolutely have to be open to the public all the time in order to be using it, which I see the discussion kind of going that way. I went on too long. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Trustee Baer.
I do have a couple more things. And believe me, I'm gonna have friends that are gonna be so mad at me after tonight. It's, but I really do feel a responsibility. I guess going back to open to the public, I have to bring up the very, very uncomfortable reality that this is a religious organization that publicly is not open to every group in the sense of, in the beliefs. And I don't want to bring that up, but in the reality is that from the time that the license was granted and today's community, we are having different discussions about everything. And so, you know, if this is going to come up, that's going to be part of my discussion too. And so the definition of open to the public is, I do think that we have a responsibility to the community to talk openly about what that means, especially with everything that we are trying to do. And so, yes, part of it is economic development, absolutely. And that's a responsibility that we have to our community, but we also have other responsibilities as well. And so maybe the outcome is that this organization keeps their license, but moves forward differently, posting hours. You know, maybe there are different, I think we need to have the conversation. I think it's fair to ask to have the conversation, especially since we're giving this discretion in our ordinance. So again, I'm going to vote tonight, and maybe I'll be in the minority, and then it won't be an issue at all. But I don't want to, for the sake of everyone, I want to be contributing to the record and just be as honest as possible, because ultimately we do all live together in the community.
And again, I know there's a motion on the table. I would like a hearing on it so I can actually explore those questions tonight with feedback from our own council. Other than that, I have not made a decision, I have not, I'm looking at A through E, and I don't have the answer yet, so, okay, go ahead.
And if I may, I'm just contributing the record so that everybody knows what my questions are, so that if we do have a hearing, that it is well spent, and I don't want to be offering any questions outside of this meeting.
Trustee Buckles.
And I appreciate what you said. I wouldn't want to have a hearing just for hearing's sake. But I will go back to the list and also some of the conversations and discussions that we've had here, and I'm not an attorney, so forgive me, and I would ask for some patience in this. But an event like Koryezu?
Koryezu.
Say again?
Koryezu.
Okay. Anyway, so that's just going to go. One, I wouldn't know. I'm gonna Google it, but you know what I'm saying.
You don't have to do it. Can I ask, are these, the parish holds the attorney bearer, and then if you can't answer, maybe someone can, but the parish holds the liquor license, is this correct? It's the parish. So if it's a school event, is it there for the parish? Some of these might, I don't know, I'm not familiar with all the events. I just want to know legally, is that the same?
The school and the parish.
Right.
Well, I mean, if the parish is putting events on, they're the holder.
And taking the money, not the school,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so as long as the,
I don't have any information on how they divide their funds.
May.
sure.
Yeah.
if you can
My
answer.
name is Tom Dean, and I'm actually a trustee for the parish, so I'm the legal
Hi, Tom.
person. Hi, thanks for having us here. Lots of fun. No, to answer your question, it's St. Robert Congregation is the incorporated entity, and everything falls underneath that. So St. Robert school events, Holman school event, we call it Holman school, it's similar to PTA, same kind of thing. All of those things fall underneath our liquor license for St. Robert Congregation.
So it's the parish and the school.
The parish is the Inc. If you think about like a corporate structure, the parish is the umbrella, St. Robert Congregation. Underneath that is everything else. So we're incorporated under Wisconsin law and also under Canon law. And I'm one of the legal trustees of the parish. So all of these events that you're looking at, you can just think of them as St. Robert Congregation because we all operate under the same umbrella for legal purposes. The only other thing that I would like to say is that if you all do decide to go down the path of asking for a hearing and that, we received a letter from you on, I think it was April 30th, maybe was when it was dated. But the contents of that letter don't have anything to do with what we've discussed tonight. So we would request some other kind of communication so that we know exactly what we're
Oh,
trying
I
to
see,
do.
a follow-up communication to this meeting.
Exactly,
Okay.
because otherwise it would be awkward.
Well, the other thing was, we kind of are just getting into this continued use thing in the last 24 hours like you guys are. So it wasn't as if we had all this information and we held it until tonight. And then all of a sudden we we scrambled to put this together as well because we weren't really familiar with the basis for this potential non-renewal. So just to kind of give us a little bit of credit, we're not trying to jam you up and all of a sudden give you all this info on the night up. We were caught short too because we didn't know why this had come up. So,
Thank you.
thanks.
Trustee Buckles.
Yeah, and thank you for that, because to that point, it almost seems like having a bigger discussion, because they didn't have the necessary time to prepare, and nor did we really. And it wasn't that, I mean, we all know that you had to apply it for a certain amount of time, and then it has to be noticed publicly, et cetera. So, but yeah, I understand, if the previous 20-some, 30, whatever, 50 years, however you said, you didn't have any kind of problems, I could see why you wouldn't think that there would be something that, and we haven't had these problems yet either. So we're all kind of in growing pains, or I would call it actually the opposite, stagnation pains, as far as the law is concerned.
Thank you. Any other questions from board or attorney bear or village manager at this time? Okay, so if there's not, there is a motion on the floor. Can you repeat the motion? Second.
moved by trustee Mocker to grant the license as listed and to direct the village clerk to issue the license subject to the payment of all outstanding fees, taxes, and/or alcohol.
Any further discussion?
I have a clarification question. If this were to fail, going,
I've been sitting here thinking about.
I
it.
know,
Would it be another motion?
Should we amend the motion?
Well, I think you should
Yeah.
vote, because what's gonna happen is, the tie vote fails, because there's no majority. And my recommendation would be, then the applicants could be in limbo, so that you should give the applicant a hearing on the matter.
But can you, I think what trust,
they have to withdraw.
I'm just saying if it fails, I didn't think about that, I didn't trust you others. If it fails, then are we denying their liquor license? Should we just amend the motion?
Withdraw it.
Or withdraw it, make another motion, let that fail? I just don't want, do you understand what I'm saying?
Well, I
Right?
think you should-
I'm not gonna withdraw the motion.
That's fine, we can also amend it, I just am asking.